The following news flash is brought to you by the Lone Star Lowdown, providing your daily bulletins for the commodities market. Today in history, news updates, and the inside scoop into the tides of the alternative. Markets for Wednesday, May 11th, 2016 are currently trading with gold at $1,273.87 an ounce, silver $17.29 an ounce, Texas crude $44.66 a barrel, and Bitcoin is currently sitting at about 456 U.S. currency. Today in history, the year 1949, by a vote of 37-12, the newly formed State of Israel, so-called, becomes the 59th member of the UN. The Zionist State of Israel admitted into the United Nations. Today in history. In recent news, it seems that this presidential campaign cycle has sparked more than 185,000 citizenship applications submitted in the final 3 months of 2015, according to government numbers, which is roughly a 14% year-to-year increase, and around 15,000 more voter registrations were submitted compared to the same 3-month period in 2011, leading into the 2012 presidential campaign cycle. Typically, the rate of citizenship applications and voter registrations historically increases in the months leading up to a presidential election as various state deadlines draw to a close. And even though the latest statistics from the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services on citizenship applications for the first quarter of the year aren't expected until June, this year's increased activity is suspected to be as a result of the Republicans' most likely front-runner candidate Donald Trump's heavy anti-illegal immigration rhetoric. The Jamaat-e-Islami Party leader, Mothiur Rahman Nizami, was hung today for genocide and other crimes committed during the 1971 Bangladesh War of Independence from Pakistan. He was executed at Dhaka Central, a jail just after midnight, after the Supreme Court rejected his final plea against the death sentence imposed by a special tribunal for genocide, rape, and orchestrating the massacre of intellectuals during the war. He was sentenced to death back in 2014, and though several international human rights groups say that the tribunal procedures fall short of international standards, the government is rejecting such notions. The Jamaat-e-Islami Party has called for a nationwide strike for tomorrow in protest, stating that their dead leader was a victim of political targeted opposition. The U.S. State Department did say that while it supported justice being carried out, it was vital that the trials were free, fair, and transparent, and conducted in accordance with international agreements. This is Rick Rohde with your lowdown for May 11th, 2016.
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the walls. The chair is against the walls. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. I have a joke for you.
Okay.
The government in this town is excellent and uses your tax dollars efficiently.
You thought you'd see it coming. The moment you comes into the
Bitcoin is immune from attack, or almost completely. With Bitcoin, you actually gain far more from using the computer power to generate Bitcoins.
There's a system approaching perfection. It's in time for our disappearance. There's a system approaching perfection. It's in time for our disappearance.
We'll walk deeper into the belly of the beast. If it means I'm able to further limit reckless government spending. I mean, I have so many ideas. Some are simple, like take down traffic lights and eliminate the post office. The bigger ones will be tougher, like bring all of this crumbling to the ground.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Crypto Show, a show about disruptive technology, currency, and liberty, with a pinch of sticking it to the man. As always, we come to you live from the real heart of the resistance in Austin, Texas, deep beneath the Chase Bank, with a stack of Bitcoin miners at our back, undermining the bank and the man. We bring to you the latest info from those hacking away at the digital revolution and having some fun while we do it.
They see me rolling, they hating, patrolling and trying to catch me riding.
Yeah, and we're riding dirty on the Crypto Show. And anyway, we've got a pretty good show tonight. We've got Cliff. Cliff is back again from Open Transactions, and we have Steve Shear from, well, I guess he's just a hacker and
old cypherpunk.
Old cypherpunk. Is that like the kind from England where they play the really loud music that sounds noisy?
I'm sure
different kind of punk.
Lots of different styles of music. Yeah.
Yeah, crypto mosh pit.
A crypto what now?
Mosh pit.
Oh, crypto mosh pit. There you go. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we also have John Bush sitting in with us.
Yahoo!
And he's going to tell us about the first Dash transaction that just recently happened.
That's right.
Some weirdo walked in off the street and
some
decided to buy some Tangy Tangerine.
Some old man.
With Dash.
Yep. Yeah, we recently started accepting Dash cryptocurrency. It's a privacy-centered cryptocurrency that has a really unique governing structure. And based on what I see about it, it's one of the first decentralized autonomous organizations. So they're a sponsor of a podcast I do, Sovereign BTC, also on the Let's Talk Bitcoin network. And I've learned about it and thought, man, we got to start accepting this currency here at the store. And to the best of my knowledge, we're the first brick and mortar in the state of Texas to accept it. So we launched it today, and lo and behold, we had our first Dash transaction. Danny Sessoms, Logos' radio network's own Danny Sessoms, bought some water and a Tangy Tangerine that he's enjoying today with Dash.
Tastes kind of stale.
It's like 0.5 Dash.
Anyway.
Check the expiration date on that thing.
Hey, Steve, how's your connection now?
Oh, it's good. I'm hearing everything fine.
Oh, okay. All right. You're just a little bit distorted, but we'll fix that in the next break when we do a little bit better connection. So, Steve, tell us how you got to be a cypherpunk and how you got into this and, kind of what you're famous for.
Okay, well, I've been very fortunate to have met and worked with and been friends with people who have hacked and pioneered in some interesting and useful technologies. As a teen in high school, two of my friends went on to create the first widely available speech synthesis software. They sold it to Apple, who rebranded it as Macintosh, and Steve Jobs used the Macintosh in 1986. So that was sort of like one of the most famous things that happened in my circles. Another of my school alumni, he was one of the very first hackers. His name was Jerry Schneider, and he dumpster dived for Pacific Telephone's logistics systems documents in order to purchase, or I should say acquire, expensive for free that he later resold for more than $1 million. And he wound up spending about 2 years in the federal pen for that and became a notable security person for a time. So early on from high school, I've sort of entrenched in that kind of space. After school, I worked for an aerospace company and for military and commercial products. I also wrote an operating system, an Intel 8080 instruction set level mini computer, an assembler. And at a major bank, U.S. Bank, I created the first, perhaps the first, truly tamper-resistant crypto module to protect the bank's ATMs and the infrastructure. So just quickly going through my curricula vitae here, you can find that actually under notable cypherpunks in Wikipedia. And I was the creator of the Warrant Canary, which a lot of people have heard about, and used by companies now to try to thwart national security letters and court orders. I was probably the first person to talk about the modern concept for the street performer protocol for public bounties. And I helped create eCash, spelled E-C-A-C-H-E, which was one of the first cyber digital backups after the demise of David Chaum's eCash, spelled E-C-A-S-H. And of course, he was the father of modern financial cryptography. Let's see, I was founding member of the International Financial Cryptographers Association. I was the founder of GNU Radio, which is the most popular open source signal processing software used by all kinds of people for industry, government, hacking, a lot of hacking with GNU Radio. Yeah.
Can you explain, I guess going back, what is the Canary again?
Oh, yeah.
And how does that work?
And Steve, if I might jump in here for a second, this is Cliff. Your mic level's a little bit high if you want to step back just a hair from it. Gotcha. Anyway, just go ahead. Yeah, tell them about the Warrant Canary, because that was some really amazing stuff that you did there.
Right. So I was on the cypherpunks list at the time in the 1990s, 2000. And at that time, the feds were raising hell with companies trying to grab all of their information. And I'm sure Cliff knows about this, since his company was served with court orders when he was working at Cushman. Anyway, but since this all was in the news, I decided that I needed to come up with an answer to that. So because the court orders prevent you from talking about any kind of warrant that served on the company after it's served, I decided, well, what happens if we set up the situation where the company actually publishes something beforehand on a regular basis, and then as soon as you're served with a court order, you stop publishing. And therefore, the lack of information is the positive indication that you've been served with a court order. And since constitutionally, so far, no court has held in the United States that they can compel speech, you get basically tipped your hat that you've been served with a court order that they can't prevent.
All right. And I'm sorry. We're trying to get something going here. Are you still there?
I'm still here.
Yeah.
So did you guys with Hushmail, did y'all utilize a warrant canary whenever you guys were kind of had the pressure put on you?
Unfortunately, no. I'm trying to remember which year that Steve came out with that. That could have possibly been useful, but there you have it. One thing I will say is that, Hushmail was a big sponsor of the International Financial Cryptography Association back in 1999 and 2000 when I was really active with it. We had some great conferences in the Caribbean, and we had some really big names and some really interesting people working, which are still working in the industry today, and now they're largely in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and things like that now. So it's had a long history with the whole cypherpunks and how this stuff has all come about.
You want to run down what happened to Hushmail so people would know?
Well, this is the nice thing. I can actually claim ignorance on the thing because I left in 2002. I resigned from the board. I left all my positions. And so technically I am just a particularly large shareholder in the company. So I don't have any inside knowledge of what's happened since, the 2006, 2007 when the Canadian government came. And at least that's when it officially was shown that a Wired article came out and said that, hey, if Canada's got a warrant, then your messages are not end-to-end encrypted and secure. And the whole tagline that I came up with, speak freely with Hushmail was speak freely with you, the person you're talking to, and a few thousand or 100,000 people in particular governments and associations around if they ever particularly want to know. So it's a shame it went that way, but I think all centralized systems have come under those kinds of pressure, and it's really about decentralized systems from here on out.
Yeah, when you can take away the CEOs or the boards that can be pressured and have their privileges or rights taken away from them, it makes it a lot harder for the government to do anything about it, which is the beauty of decentralized organizations. And Bitcoin especially, I mean, there's a lot of controversy about who Satoshi is, but there truly is no head to be cut off with Bitcoin, which is precisely why I think it's flourishing and why so many people in the cypherpunk space and so many anarchists and so many people that value their privacy, some would call them criminals, so many people enjoy using Bitcoin precisely because there is no head to cut off, no pressure to be put on. And I think that's the wave of the future. As we see more decentralized autonomous organizations and businesses even, then there's going to be no pressure. Of course, ride sharing is a perfect example for the Austin listeners. They just had Uber and Lyft are packing up and leaving town because Proposition 1 failed and the city laid down some pretty strong regulations. Well, there's an alternative called Lazooz, and it is taking quite some time to get a foothold, this cryptocurrency decentralized ride-sharing application. But the idea is that people could use their cars to transport people. They can get paid to move people in their vehicle, and they don't have to really do any background checks or any type of regulatory stuff in the first place, which is great, and I appreciate that. So I'm anxious to see as more and more people learn about decentralized autonomous organizations, as more and more people utilize them. I think it's definitely going to be the wave of the future. So it's definitely time to hop on board. Steve, have you seen decentralized autonomous technologies come quite some ways? I imagine back in the early days, a lot of the stuff that we see now and people take for granted was kind of pie in the sky dreams, and people hoped that one day we could reach that.
Well, the only place that I actually saw or worked with anything like that was I was very early in MeshNets. So that's a decentralized wireless type system, and I was working on that in the mid-1990s.
Okay, and that was for connecting the internet?
Well, yeah, or any other kind of communications. We had a variety of systems. I worked for a company called Silink at the time, and doing both crypto and wireless. The company actually, I later learned out, had been founded essentially by NSA money and influence. But I didn't know that when I joined. Yeah. Right, well,
hindsight 2020. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah,
hey,
exactly.
Steve, we're coming up on a break. You're listening to The Crypto Show. Check us out at thecryptoshow.com. Of course, we're here live from the Brave Cave on Logos Radio Network. Danny Sessoms, I'm John Bush. We got Cliff in studio. Stick with us, and we'll be right back after this break.
You are listening to the Logos Radio Network. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
This is what happens when you call the cops. Say what? This is what happens when you call the cops. Come on. This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. This is what happens when you call the cops. You get your rights violated or you all get shot.
I'm sick of people being victimized by criminal cops. Psychopathic predators terrorizing neighborhood blocks. Equipped with pepper spray, mace, cuffs, tasers, and glocks. They like serial killers acting out subliminal thoughts. Forget what you taught. These cops have got a license to kill. Witness intimidation means that they can use it at will. Code of silence means that the pigs will never let out a squeal. And if they go to court, they know the judge will make them a deal.
And welcome back to the Crypto Show. And this is what happens when you're talking to the cyberpunks. So
it's the NSA.
Yeah. We have a lot of listeners there. Where's that? Idaho, Iowa, wherever, the NSA building where they steal all the water. Yeah. Anyway.
Stick the environmentalists on them.
Yeah. So we're talking with Steve Scheer, well-known cypherpunk. And I think we got in through the Canary, Warrant Canary. Now, what was the street team thing?
It was called the Street Performer Protocol. That was something that I came up with maybe 6 months or more before Bruce Schneier and some of his gang. And basically its ability to raise money before an activity, whether it's an artistic thing like a film you're going to make or software you want to develop, and create a bounty for it so that people would pay into a fund. And when it got to some threshold, then the person who had offered to do the work was obligated to then finish the work, and then they would be paid all or part of the bounty. The generalization could be divided up in segments or, milestones. But it's called the Street Performer Protocol.
Was this pre-crowdfunding, or is this the original crowdfunding?
Yes, this is before crowdfunding existed.
Awesome. Well, what are some of the, the things that you guys did with it? Some of the main things that you had funded?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
I said, what were some of the main things that you were able to fund doing this?
Well, actually, I didn't produce any service or do anything with it because at that time it was very difficult to get traction. People looked at the idea and said, "Right," and the idea really didn't go anywhere until companies like Kickstarter, many years later, we're talking like 10 years later, sort of rediscovered that idea and started to do bounty systems and raise money that way through crowdfunding.
Oh, all right.
I doubt that
sounds like you're a man ahead of your time.
Well, yes, and the problem with that, of course, is that you don't get much.
It's lonely in the early days.
Don't get much time.
Well, you don't get much respect.
Well, we get to say that you invented it, so that's always cool. So
it all pays off. It's a long-term investment.
It must have been a decade or more.
Awesome.
Maybe for some of the listeners that may not be familiar, what exactly is a cypherpunk? And tell us a little bit about the origins of this movement.
It began in the early 1990s by hold on a second. Oh, I'm going to have to move. Hold on a second. And I'll continue talking while I'm walking.
Okay.
So
I'll jump in if you want.
In the 1990s, Tim May and Eric Hughes, they formed this organization, sort of a simple one. And we had meetings in San Francisco. The purpose of the cypherpunks was to use cryptography in order to provide privacy, security, and not depend on government and law. I think that was the basis of it.
Sounds like anarchy. Crypto anarchy.
Well, yes, crypto anarchy, I think, was a key element of it.
So was this a popular movement, or was there a lot of people that was membered? Did it get coverage in the mainstream press, or was it more like an underground thing?
It was pretty underground.
Well, it was underground.
I mean, this was,
it was pretty
really largely a mailing list with a few hundred or 1,000 people. Again, the center of it was the Bay Area, which I wasn't really in, although I'd drop in occasionally and, talk to St. Jude, which is the code name for her as a cypherpunk and that kind of stuff. She was very cool. And, it was, but there were a lot of lurkers, and I was kind of one of them within, not doing public posts under my own name, because it was really, pretty cutting edge. I mean, a lot of the crypto that we use in this day and age came out of, the idea was, and the tagline is, cypherpunks write code, because we didn't really have enough good crypto code at that time. This is around when, PGP was just starting to get out, and it was the first time where, your average citizen could have access to strong crypto. And so they were huge proponents behind all of it. And that was really the cypherpunk movement.
What did the government think about this movement?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, publicly they ignored it. Is that about right, Steve?
I think they ignored it until we actually started to write code. Then they didn't ignore it, especially in the case of Phil Zimmerman with PGP.
Who's this Phil Zimmerman?
So...
Who's Phil? Explain Phil Zimmerman. Excuse me.
Phil Zimmerman is the father of PGP. He and a few other people, including John Callis, wrote code for the first versions. John was the CTO of Silent Circle, which is the manufacturer in Switzerland of the Black Phone. And he and I worked together at Counterpane, doing all kinds of security stuff as well. But at that time, I think that there were certainly people that were shills for the intelligence agencies or the FBI on our list. But there were also some people who later on became famous, like Assange. He was one of the cypherpunks and on the list and contributed. So Julian was there. And many of the people were much lower profile, but they were writing code. And they wanted to keep a low profile. They really didn't want 3 a.m. Call knocks on their door.
Were you able to interact with Julian Assange early on? Or?
Yes, but he was not noteworthy at the time.
Right.
How things change over time,
He
right?
wasn't.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And,
I think he was still learning the ropes of, the cypherpunk movement, the trade, where he would fit and what he would later do.
Yeah. Well, the cypherpunks, that's where I learned about PGP. Started using version 1.0. And, it's interesting enough, 5 years later, I got to, hire Phil Zimmerman as our chief cryptographer at Hushmail for about a year. And he was a really nice force there to be able to, get Hushmail at that time to be PGP and GPG compatible. And, it's interesting how all of this stuff goes.
Well, in the cypherpunks, I was going to say that Phil came under a lot of pressure, and so did John Callis. And eventually the cypherpunks decided, using the Bernstein decision, that stated that, at least supported at that time, that cryptography, if it was printed form, was not considered a controlled munition, which it was at that time under ITAR, the Federal Regulations for Export of Controlled Technologies and Substances. And so what happened is they printed out all of the PGP source code, and then we mailed it out of the country where it was scanned by OCR and reconstituted out of the country. And in that way, we did a legal export of PGP.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. That's how PGP left the United States.
And so that's how they started using in other countries? Okay.
Oh, that's a big thing about crypto is really this stuff is free speech. This is just everyday people who just happen to know how to program a computer, sitting down and typing things out. This is really a definition concept of free speech, and it has been tried to be controlled, and is often being controlled in many countries all over the world because it helps give power to the people, so they're not completely spied on, and their privacy is just taken away.
Yeah, there's a total double standard. If there's any activists that have done any work in open records requests or FOIAs, and they've tried to shine light on what it is that the government's doing, you quickly find that the government does not like to share its practices. And this is the case if you're abused by a police officer and you're trying to get access to the dashboard cam. So there's quite the double standard. And we see, of course, the government flips out when iPhone starts to get serious about encryption. And from what I understand, learning from Cody Wilson, the reason why he chose to call their dark wallet experiment, which was a Bitcoin wallet that utilized coin mixing to basically be anonymous, they called it dark to kind of throw a slap back in the face of the government because they were so frightened that people would go dark. And they originally wanted this technology for themselves and their intelligence apparatus. But when it started to get out to the masses, they kind of had a little bit of a conniption fit. So it's really exciting to see that this stuff is open source and it's so widely available these days. People can send emails and messages, and now we have financial transactions that take place under the cover of darkness. So it's good to see that the level field has been the playing field has been leveled. I think that's definitely a great thing, for sure.
Yeah.
Crypto, power of the people.
Yeah,
that's right.
We're coming up on another break here.
Yeah, we're coming up on another break in just a few minutes. When we get back on the other side, we'll get into some more stuff here with Steve Scheer and find out a little bit more about cypherpunks and what they do. We'll be right back.
When teenagers don't get enough morning sunlight, they may have a tougher time sleeping at night, and that can cause lower grades. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and I'll tell you about the latest research into sunlight and night owl syndrome next.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This message is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
Do your kids have trouble getting to sleep? The cure could be a dose of morning sunshine. When teenagers don't get enough morning light, they're likely to go to bed later, get less sleep, and underperform in school. Scientists gave 8th graders special glasses to block so-called blue light. After 5 days, the students' evening onset of melatonin, the sleepy hormone, was delayed, and the kids fell asleep half an hour later than usual. So, parents, open the blinds wide in the morning and help your kids soak up those rays. You can also buy light bulbs that mimic natural sunlight. It's the best way to help your kids shine. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht for StartPage.com, the world's most private search engine.
Live Free Speech Radio, LogosRadioNetwork.com.
What's your plan for tomorrow? Are you a leader or will you follow? Are you a fighter or will you cower? It's our time. Take back the power. What's your plan for tomorrow? Are you a leader or will you follow?
And welcome back to the Crypto Show. We're talking with cypherpunk Steve Shear about the early beginnings of cryptography and where that led to and how it connected to encrypted emails and eCash and all these other really cool things that we use now and kind of what the show is all about. Let's go ahead and get into some of that, the financial end of this on the cryptography.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, there's the original and older stuff that's, from David Chaum doing, digital blinding for, anonymous, basically, digital cash, all the way up till, what we're doing here at Stash Crypto, or just Stash here in Austin, Texas.
With the blind signatures and all that.
Yeah, basically. It is a system of actual digital cash. How you have digital $10 bills and digital $20 bills or whatever currency you're using. It's as anonymous as cash. It's very cool stuff. We have that actually within Open Transactions that my co-founder Chris Odom and I have been. Chris Odom has been actually started working on that in 2010, and in 2015, he and I created a company, Stash, to basically try and get it out to the people.
Yeah, I remember seeing all those guys working on it during the Bitcoin meetups a couple of years ago here in Austin. They're talking about blind signatures and voting pools and all this other good stuff.
Well, the important thing about crypto is you have to make sure it's open source and open and freely available. Anything else just becomes something that gets locked down and controlled.
Well, what's the difference? I mean, this digital cash, how did that lead to? Obviously, that's Bitcoin.
Actually, Steve, what happened to eCash, and what happened to David Chaum's systems as well, and then the one you've done. It's all in the history. You can see this pattern over and over.
Well, David is a friend of mine, and he worked on the financial cryptography for quite a few years. And it wasn't until the publication of an article in Scientific American that it became sort of like wide-scale or widespread knowledge that people actually had come up with algorithms that could create the digital equivalent of cash. David had some great people on his team. He formed a company and developed software in the Netherlands. Unfortunately, David wasn't as good a businessman as he was a cryptographer and technical developer. And when he tried to sell his product, I was working at a major New York bank at the time, and I think I mentioned I did some of that. And David approached my company and several others, large New York banks, to do a test. The problem is he didn't understand that the banks really had the fix-in for the entire economic system and had no intention of creating a technology that could later eat their lunch. So the only thing they were going to offer him, the large banks, was to put some technical people on it so they could understand the threat model. And they gave him enough change so he thought he was getting somewhere, but he was never going to get anywhere with those banks. So he wound up having to do business with the Mark Twain Bank in St. Louis. That was the only U.S. bank he was able to get to actually roll out the product. But it was never very successful because they didn't have a lot of money to spend on it, and the bank itself didn't have a lot of depth or reach. So eventually, DigiCash's U.S. operations sort of ceased, and even the foreign banks that he used, they were just, again, they had him on a leash. They eventually pulled the plug on their experimental projects, and that was the end of DigiCash.
So that DigiCash is based on money that was held in a bank? How does that work?
Yes. Yeah, what happened is that DigiCash created specialized software that would work with the bank system so that funds could be transferred from the regular book entry systems that the bank had into a mint, as it was called, and it would mint digital tokens in conjunction with the user's wallet. And that was important because the user's wallet created tokens that it had blinded and sent to the bank for signature. And the bank would check to see whether or not the person had enough funds to withdraw to create these digital tokens for them. They would withdraw the tokens. They would digitally sign the tokens that were sent to them. But then when they were returned to the user would unblind them. They would perform the reverse operation. And this was using RSA type of algorithms. And because of the math in RSA, once the user's wallet unblinded the tokens, the bank could recognize that it has signed the token. They could recognize their signature, but they can never trace it back to the original signing episode and therefore know who the tokens were given. And that's what blinding is about.
Yeah. Hence the whole idea of it's cash, So if you don't, unlike real cash,
and then it can circulate in there.
Yeah, which now has serial numbers on it, et cetera. But if you do that without serial number situation, you actually have, boom, digital cash that is how cash should be.
Right. That's pretty interesting.
Well, that's the amazing thing that what Bitcoin does. It just solves that with the blockchain situation that you don't have to go to a bank. There's no value in Bitcoin. You're trading random numbers except for what the group decides of what it's worth. And that is actually a true free market economy system.
Right. The payment system itself is the value rather than some arbitrary piece of paper somewhere.
Or someone setting your interest rate, or someone saying X of Y value, or setting the price of gold or anything else, setting wise,
What do you think that led to from there, DigiCash? Do you think that, any other technologies kind of spawned from there, that maybe PayPal or any of these others?
I wouldn't say PayPal, but,
No.
there were some others, but it all comes down to, until we had something like Bitcoin, that can be run as a decentralized system that is run by the users for the users. That was really the first time I've seen, digital cash situations really take off, and the world's starting to recognize it. And then again, you also have, R3 and such, with the 43 largest banks, or pretty much largest banks in the world, funding their own blockchain technologies now. So, that's,
Didn't they hire some guy that knew a little something about that?
They've hired quite a few people. Yeah, exactly. In fact, I think that's one of the things that's going on is, they're drying up the industry of people who can actually work on Bitcoin and more of the decentralized systems, so that, it's a nice paycheck. I know some guys making over $250,000 a year.
I think Roger said on the last show, at Consensus, the thing that he noticed is the banks have arrived.
That's right. Yeah. And they're taking this Bitcoin threat very seriously. In fact, they've got it almost to the point in the media. People don't say the word Bitcoin. You're supposed to say the word blockchain. It's blockchain technology. Of course, Bitcoin's
or BLT. BLT. Excuse me. Right.
Do y'all think that even if the banks start to adopt their own blockchains, that will still lead to an increase in price and an increase in value for Bitcoin itself, the originator? Because it's kind of a proving ground, proves that the technology works. So even if it gets transformed or people use the code for something else, at least people will still see that the originator, it worked.
Well, the originator has the strongest network, so they can build their blockchain all they want, but until they build a network that's as strong as Bitcoin, then they've got something to do.
Mm-hmm. What do y'all think? Do you think that'll help Bitcoin or hurt Bitcoin?
Go ahead,
I think it'll help it. Yeah, I think it'll actually help Bitcoin in several different ways. One is that there's these permission systems, as they're now called, in which the blockchain is not a distributed system with disinterested parties or unlinked parties like we have in Bitcoin. Those systems can be particularly vulnerable to hacking, and the reason is because the permission system is all locked down and private and secret. Anything that goes on inside those systems wouldn't be known to the end users or a larger community of people. It would be a small cadre of people. So if there's a hack, they could collapse the entire system or threaten it. Bitcoin is not so easily done that way. So I think what will happen is that they'll raise the consciousness of blockchain technology, but then people will learn, more and more people will understand why having Bitcoin as part of the blockchain is a marriage made in heaven.
Not only that, I think these banks and everything, if they do have a blockchain, I'm sure there's going to be some kind of a permission barrier. Like if you wanted to send it to whatever foreign country you want to, they're not going to want to just release that without having some sort of control. So, whatever blockchain they do come up with, I think it would probably be limited. It wouldn't be as free as the Bitcoin. It's
going to be lame.
Yeah. Well, we need to be careful because that's it's happening right before our eyes. If you tie the banks having their own blockchain technology and espousing how great this is, but at the same time they're tied in with the regulators who are regulating the systems, those two things at the same time will pretty quickly, I would just guess that the powers that be would love to have digital cash for everybody as long as it's complete and totally controlled by them.
Yeah.
So, I hope people can kind of understand that as we go forward in the future, the difference between something like Bitcoin or a truly decentralized cryptocurrency versus what's being shown.
All right. And we're coming to break, so we'll get into more of that on the other side. And welcome back to the Crypto Show, where we're talking with Steve Shear, a old-time cypherpunk, who's going to tell us a little bit more about cypherpunkery.
Good term.
And anyway, so we were talking a little bit about the financial ends of cryptography and all that. You want to go ahead and finish up what you were saying about?
Well, yeah, I'd like to hopefully see the future of, cryptocurrencies be something that, complete digital and user autonomy is what I would really like to see the world have. Chris Odom and I are very much both onto saying, you know what, we would like to use these systems ourselves. We would like to have control over our own money, our own property, and the things that we do and transact online. And we think that everyone would want that. So we're working hard with a group of us coding up stuff that is going to be tied into Bitcoin and other, in fact, most other cryptocurrencies, plus digital gold, plus actual securities and other types of things.
Even Dash?
Even Dash. That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that we're working with, it's more of a long-term goal, but we think is going to be really amazing in the industry, is putting out a system that uses voting pools. We call them stash pools. And basically, you'll have, it's an M of N voting system. So let's say, 8 out of 10 of actual running nodes on the internet can do voting and auditing in real time. What that does is it solves the Mt. Gox problem. It solves all of these exchanges and all of these different systems and escrow that you find in Bitcoin over and over and over, where the money gets stolen or it gets hacked or they go out of business, or suddenly all you know is that you were doing something great with your funds and, exchanging it for some other kind of funds or some other type of thing, and boom, it gets stolen or gone. And, don't even get a good story of, it's a good story, but you don't even get the truth half the time of how it was stolen or who stole it,
how you got goxed?
Yeah, exactly. How did you get goxed? Yeah. So, we're really looking forward to that technology because, and having it implemented, we've got it well designed. It's just a matter of it. There's a lot of code to write. And once that is out there, it's going to be a game changer.
Can you simplify what a voting pool is and how it works?
Well, imagine, I guess let's call 3 of 5. Let's say that there's 5 nodes out there and there are 5, exchanges. Let's just talk about, Bitcoin exchanges. So, there's 5 Bitcoin exchanges out there and they're all running a node on a stash pool. The idea is all of these guys are running with cryptographic proofs, dealing with auditing each other in real time so that no individual business, no one of them can actually steal the funds. Before the funds are released, you have to have 3 of those 5 nodes vote cryptographically and say, yes, these funds are good, this is legitimate, and these funds can be released. So suddenly in a system like that, you will never have, maybe Coinbase is the next one. Sure, they raised $100 million, but they can go bankrupt just like, I believe trying to see just how much money in exchange Mt. Gox had. I mean, I think they'd probably done $100 billion worth of Bitcoin within a matter of months, So these are major organizations that can, down the line, just end up, poof, they've stolen your money. And that particularly will change when you have a voting pool structure. And the important part of this and how this is different than a lot of other side chains and systems, at least I think, is that using the cryptographic proofs, you truly can't have any one of these businesses. We can actually prove this, that one individual entity and one individual business cannot steal the funds. What that does is it makes an amazing situation where you can have a small group of people having the same level of security as a major institution, depending on which voting pool you, as a user, choose to join and be a part of. So, this is where the future, this is 21st century digital finance. This is going to happen. It's just a matter of, will we get it out there first and how the world's going to be using it. But unless it's done with openly auditable, open source code as the core, you shouldn't trust it. That's the whole thing. That's this lesson we've learned ever since the cypherpunk movement began. If it's a centralized system and you can't see the code, you shouldn't trust it.
I think another aspect of having a common platform, such as Stash, is that when you have all of these financial instruments, which are sort of like identical, except that they're in a different type of asset class or a different type of national money, Bitcoin, gold, what have you, the exchangers that right now are all regulated can become totally unregulated and distributed because they no longer need bank accounts in order to move funds. Once funds move into the system, and we will talk about that aspect, but once funds can move into the system and those funds are vettable and believable, then all of these exchangers can now offer trading platforms so that people can exchange any currency for any other currency or asset class, and the people running those exchangers no longer need bank accounts. That's very important. It can become distributed and unregulated.
Exactly. It's the ability to, without a bank account, have total, complete control of your own funds. It's complete user autonomy. That's the goal I hope that, our world ends up seeing in a short period of time. Because I think once the world sees that, it's like the internet. It's like, why would we ever go back? This is so cool,
How far along are you guys on product for Stash?
This is probably not the best venue for us to talk about that specifically. I mean, we're out raising financing. We've got a really nice team working on it. We're going to get it done, and I think we're going to get it done first. But to actually put exact timelines on it is probably not for that part of it.
But the website is up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, are there any services at all?
We're not offering any services to the public at this moment. We are a small team, and so when we launch something, we want it to work really well and be really amazing. So that's kind of we're holding back to make sure that that particular thing. We can demo like 5 or 6 really cool products. We've got web wallets and desktop wallets and Trezor integration and all kinds of good stuff, and a lot of deals that we don't publicly talk about specifically. Although one of them is pretty interesting, and we're going to have to definitely do a show on that soon if you're up for it, about digital gold and people in Texas. But anyway, that's kind of some of the basics that we're working on.
Can you expand a little bit on the Trezor wallet idea? Are there are there other?
Well, one of the cool things.
Let's track it out of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, as far as are there other applications? Could it go with Ledger or any of these other?
Again, you want total digital autonomy. And user economy over your own funds. It's pretty neat to have a Trezor in your pocket that can hold $1 million worth of Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency, or if we have other issuers on real fiat currency. I should say classical, currencies such as US dollars. So exactly, legacy. There you go. Yeah, that's probably going to be where it's at. You can do that and carry this around in your front pocket, go to an internet cafe and be able to move funds and have control over them. That's where the world is headed towards. But you do have to have the level of security, and with the amount of security holes in, especially the phones, sometimes the desktops, it's good to have a physical device with you to be able to, if you're holding a large amounts of money and, your life savings or something, you want to have a good, hardware wallet.
Yeah, right. Do you want to expand on any of that, Steve?
No, I think Cliff's doing an excellent job. Actually, I'm going to have to bow out for a few minutes. I'll be back in about 10.
Oh, okay.
Okay, cool. We'll see you in a few minutes.
All righty.
Well, we have some latest news. Chris Odom and I just got back from MIT and Cambridge and gave some great presentations on the smart contract system that we have. We had a lot of real solid interest from. They were great people, really, really bright people at MIT, and the lawyers that were also there checking out the latest in legal technologies. A digital smart contract is one that will run autonomously and run on its own. So whether it's for escrow or real bills or whatever you're dealing with, it will actually move the funds automatically and maybe have an oracle or two for input, or if there's a dispute, you can actually have a human, a judge basically, or a human being acting as that to deal with the dispute system. But otherwise, the contract runs autonomously, and we have a real working system of that right now. They're coming out with some basics on that right now with Ethereum and a few other systems. But we've had this for a while, and we really got the GUI a little bit better and more down. And that's another thing that we're showing, and getting the world into. This is the kind of thing that's coming.
Right. So. Did you see anything else at MIT that was interesting? I mean,
I saw Kismet in person for the first time.
Who?
Kismet, the cute little robot that does all the facial features.
Oh,
yeah. They got a great robotics lab there at the MIT labs. It's pretty neat.
Oh, wow. So that's the only, so they invited you guys out there.
Yeah, they flew us up there, put us in a hotel, said, you guys need to present. And I think we're really glad we did, and they're really glad we did. And we met some really wonderful people up there.
Cool.
Yeah.
No interest in any of it, though?
Well, we will see. I'm sure down the line there's going to be quite a bit from a financial side. There was one particular, I won't get into all the interesting side business deals that are probably coming out of it sooner than later. But it's best to not predict the future and just let it see where it goes.
Cool. All righty then. So, what do you think about all this, John?
Well, I'm excited. I just got to order online, bravenewbookstore.com for a Dash. Somebody's going to pay for some online goods. Anatomy of the State by Murray Rothbard with Dash. Sorry to be over there in left field. I'm kind of tinkering around here. Somebody just placed that order, and I'm a little excited. But I think it's great. I think it's exciting, and it's a great time to be alive for people that value liberty and privacy. And I'm really appreciative of all the entrepreneurs out there, because it's one thing to have an idea, and it's a whole nother thing to be able to take that idea to market and do it successfully in a way that allows you to earn money from it and do what you enjoy doing and earn a living from it. So kudos to all the entrepreneurs out there that are taking these great ideas and putting them into practice. And it sounds like you guys with Stash are doing just that. And I'm also excited that y'all are based here in Austin too. So
that's fun. Well, thank you very much, and definitely thank you for saying that to all the entrepreneurs out there, because this is where the products come from. We're going to have a decentralized crypto systems changing everything from Uber to everything else.
Yeah. Uber,
exactly. Yeah, we have.
Oh yeah,
we talked about that. I think we hashed that one out pretty well. Well, you know what? Then it's the next system. Every time they turn these systems off, it just becomes more crypto and more decentralized.
Yeah.
And,
I've seen something. I didn't even read the full article, but I've seen something earlier today about now that they've kicked out Uber, they want to deregulate the cabs.
Oh, I saw that.
What is that?
Yeah, the whole thing was a level playing field.
You guys have to act like the cabs. Get out of here. Oh, okay. Cabs, now you can act like them.
Yeah,
that's just a total
There's something called
scam.
Arcade City. I understand you guys covered in the last show too. So hopefully that'll poke its head in.
It doesn't have an app. It doesn't have an app yet. But, we'll see where it goes from there.
But it sounded pretty neat. It's tough to decentralized.
We'll get into more of this on the other side. And welcome back to the Crypto Show. We're into the second hour, and I guess I forgot to mention our sponsors in the first hour, which is Brave New Books, Hill Country Home Improvements, and I think Carl's Jr. is still sponsoring us, as well as Bitcoin.com and Crypto Compare, where you can go and find out all the latest crypto prices and what coins are doing what. That's CryptoCompare.com. Anyway, so we're on the line with Jamie Redmond, who's also a writer for Bitcoin.com, since we're mentioning Bitcoin.com. And you write, who all else do you write for, Jamie? I think you put articles out all over the place, don't you?
Yes, I do. The Bitcoinist, I work for News BTC. I also do all of their graphics. I'm revamping all their cover work, and I've been doing that on the side as well. Bitcoin.com, I've been doing that like every day. Pretty much everywhere. Last time I talked to you, I did a couple stories on Let's Talk Bitcoin Network, and basically everywhere.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Just cranking them out.
Right.
You know, so.
Good stuff. Keep it going, man.
Yeah. So
yeah,
what are some of the latest stories of yours that were pretty big that you really took an interest in anyway?
I'd have to say, like, I just talked to Rasa, and I did a story with him about the new Mycelium wallet, and I thought that was pretty cool. And today I actually just released an interview that I did with antiwar.com, and I really liked putting that one out. And
is that with Angela or?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's cool.
And Angela. Yep, I talked with her, and we talked about what they're doing for Memorial Day with Bitcoin not bombs. And she just had a lot of good stuff to say against, the military-industrial complex and how we can starve the state and stuff like that. Right. And cryptocurrency will help out.
Yeah. I think they're doing.
That's what we hope.
They're doing the poppy pin. Is that what
Yep.
What's
the symbol of peace in the UK, I believe she said.
The symbol of peace in the UK is the red poppy? I thought maybe that had something to do with the heroin that they're protecting over there in Afghanistan.
I believe she said it was a peace in the UK. I wouldn't, but I can see where you can get confused on that.
Peace, man.
Right.
For sure. So yeah, that was really good, and that's the kind of stuff that I like to promote is what I believe are the foundations of Bitcoin and counter economics and stuff of that nature.
Right. So, what's your ideal on the cypherpunk movement?
I think there's a lot of people that still support it. I think that certain parts of the industry maybe we have some shady people and stuff like that, but I think there's definitely some people from the grassroots movement that originally started that are just still here, like me and many other people, you guys, and promoting the decentralizedness of Bitcoin and privacy and stuff like that, and continue to shout about it, and that's all you can do.
Right. Yeah. I guess you're more of the anarchist type for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and all this. So, do you ever get pushback from the statist side of the movement?
I try to keep myself listening to other people's opinions and stuff.
Right.
I've always said before in the past that I believe that it's Bitcoin is not mine to say what it is or what ideology is behind it. So I've kind of lost. I'm not really trying to fight people these days. I always try to listen to them more and see what There's definitely lots and lots of people. There was right on the top post of Reddit today was for somebody calling Obama to regulate Bitcoin, and it's the perfect opportunity in my eyes to pillage us more and stuff like that. So people definitely want to regulate it and use it for their taxes and paying parking bills, and and there's people like me that want to use it to actually totally get rid of them entirely.
Mm-hmm. Right. To be able to send it anywhere in the world. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
user autonomy
there's definitely two sides, and I think lately you can see it more as more industry and banks are getting into it, and so it's like both levels. It's a yin and a yang.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Bitcoin itself has made a major, at least a mind share change for the world to at least, understanding what is this and why is this cool? And, what does this represent? A peer-to-peer digital cash system, Then again, we've got a lot of media and a lot of banks and stuff behind trying to, I think, take it for themselves and kind of co-opt the system a bit. And so there's going to be a lot, in media and conversations and stuff. But the system itself is what it is. It's open source free crypto in action. And I think that at least was a really good thing, and it's opened up a lot of people's eyes and understood the tie-in between economics and such with all of this.
So Steve, are you there now?
Yeah, my experience with Bitcoin goes back quite a ways. And I think my impression was when I tried to learn about Bitcoin and I tried to explain it to others, it was very much like I think it was when physics at the end of the 19th century was supplanted by quantum mechanics. People could understand classical physics because it reflected an understanding, an innate understanding that people have with the world around them and nature, being able to sense things or use simple instruments to detect them. But quantum mechanics took things in an entirely different direction that few people could understand or appreciate. And I think Bitcoin has kind of fallen in that category because it's using technologies and in ways that are counter to what people experience in their daily lives and have grown up with. It's neither cash nor a standard book entry system, but it's a third thing yet again. And so that's made it difficult for people to understand. Then the question becomes, I think, in the long term, do people really care about how Bitcoin works? They certainly don't understand how the financial system works, how the Treasury works, how economics work in Wall Street and other places. And so they trust that it works. And I think that if Bitcoin can survive the kinds of political, economic, and other, stresses that it's under, and it becomes reliable and people can depend on it, they really won't care what technology underlies Bitcoin or how it works below. Just like they don't care that quantum mechanics is used in all of the mobile phones that they've got in their hands. It's not important. All they care about is they can use it and it works.
I had no idea there were quantum mechanics in my cell phone.
Oh, absolutely. Every transistor uses quantum mechanics.
Learn something every day.
Lasers. The LEDs in the backlights.
Yeah.
The LEDs in the what?
In the back, and on your screen, you're looking
at the backlights on your phone and your TVs, everything. All those things are using devices that depend on quantum mechanical activities in order to operate.
Cool.
Definitely.
But do we care?
Well, Jamie, this is you're talking with Steve Shear. He's on the line now. Do you have any questions for him? I know you're a big cypherpunk fan, so shoot away. Now's your chance.
I definitely I agree with what he's saying, and I think that to me, like I said, with Bitcoin and behind it and the ideologies and stuff of decentralization and everything, I just think it's planting the seeds, and definitely people don't have to know what they're operating with, and that's why I keep pushing Bitcoin, because of what it is, and it's how it goes back, and it's changed everything. It's something we've never experienced before, and it's giving us something to stop the corruption and change things. And in a way, it'll just happen naturally without everybody knowing what's operating behind it.
Right.
What I've been doing over the past 2 years is giving away Bitcoin as a way to encourage people and engage them in the Bitcoin community. My significant other calls me Johnny Bitcoin Seed. So what I'll do is if people will install a wallet on their mobile phone when I'm face-to-face with them, I'll transfer some Bitcoin, usually $1's worth, into their wallet. And I give away hundreds of dollars that way. And quite a few of the people that I've given it to, perhaps 10 or 20%, are actually becoming Bitcoin users on a regular basis and, got involved in the community.
Yeah, especially when you can give it to them at this price, and then several months down the road, it's higher, and they look at that dollar, and now it's $1.73, and then wait a minute,
they know
kind of gives them something. Yeah, it's going up, not down,
or triple. Yes, exactly.
And this gets them to study about it and research, and I agree with that as well, and that's how I got into it, and I started researching everything, and learning about the different ways of how money operates, and this new technology that even has blown my mind after studying economics and stuff like that.
Are you still do you still take part in all those Agorist pages? I guess no army and
the Autonopian governs. Yep, all that. Yep, spreading it all.
Right. Cool.
Yep, we take part in that, and just everything. I'm more on sticking with the cryptocurrency stuff, and those guys are everywhere on everything on the anti-state.
Right. So, Steve, do you have anything new that you're working on as far as, cryptography? I mean, other than what you're doing with Stash?
I just wanted to mention it briefly. Yeah, it is. I think I mentioned early in the hour when I was first on that I worked for an aerospace company, and I did work in the military as well as the commercial sector. Well, while I was there, I educated myself and also worked on some projects that were used for military purposes, tactical radio type systems and covert communications. So what I've been working on is to use cryptography to create covert radio systems that try to solve and hopefully will solve the metadata problem that is a problem on the Internet. Cryptography, as it's mostly practiced for communications on the Internet, only hides the content of your message. What you really want to do is prevent people from even other people other than the person you're communicating with from even knowing that communications is taking place by yourself or those other parties. And that's the purpose of covert communications. It's
okay, well, we're coming to a break.
Yeah.
So when we get back on the other side, we'll get a little bit more into what you're talking about there. So we're talking with Jamie Redmond and Steve Shear on the Crypto Show. We'll be right back.
This is the Logos Radio Network.
Oh, for the longest time. Oh, for the longest year.
And welcome back to the Crypto Show. We're talking with Jamie Redmond and Steve Shear. And during the break, we were talking a little bit about some different things. And Jamie had a question to Steve. You want to go ahead and ask that then, Jamie?
Yes, Steve. I was wondering, there's been a lot of reports lately about how we need to come up with some quantum-resistant kind of stuff for encryption, whether it's with Bitcoin or, protection of internet sites or anything really. I'm wondering how you feel. Like, there's a lot of articles coming out that, a quantum computer is coming out soon, and it can break anything, And I'm wondering your opinion about that.
Well, quantum computing is certainly a very interesting area, and it's a subject of intense research and development for lots of reasons, not just trying to break codes, but doing all kinds of very interesting mathematical functions. However, as your question posits, is it possible that Bitcoin and the algorithms behind Bitcoin and common cryptography that's in use, like elliptic curve, will fall to quantum computing? And the answer is quite probably yes. The question is when. And it's difficult to know what the status of, for instance, at the NSA is with quantum computing. We can see what it is in the commercial field, but as we've seen in the past many years ago, usually the NSA is fairly far ahead. However, since, I guess, the 1960s, the difference between the NSA's lead in commercial crypto has shrunk considerably, and because many people, the most intelligent and the most productive people in cryptography, left for the commercial sectors where they could earn a lot of money. So it's not clear what lead the NSA has, even with its enormous resources, over what's in the commercial sector for quantum computing. And there, it doesn't appear that elliptic curve cryptography is going to fall within a year or two.
Right.
After that, it's hard to say.
I mean, if the quantum computing is a problem, won't they just change the Bitcoin mining algorithms to quantum computing? Or
well,
I don't know. I think that would be pretty difficult on some of the algorithms.
Yes, it's not trivial. And also, the confidence that even the most advanced academic researchers have in non-quantum quantum-resistant cryptography is still not very widely based. It's not. There's no consensus that the algorithms that are being developed are bulletproof against quantum computing. Ones like homomorphic type algorithms, which is IBM and many other companies have pushed. So I think that for several years, it's going to be difficult to know if they're going to be replacement algorithms that can kind of be dropped in to the same kind of computing situation as we're using now with, for instance, elliptic curve. Now, there are algorithms that are believed to be quantum computing resistant, such as symmetric cryptography, but that doesn't really solve the problems that a lot of the crypto in common use have, such as Diffie-Hellman key exchanges and things of that sort. So we're going to just have to see what comes out of the academic circles.
And what was that again? What type of cryptography?
That would be like Alice and Bob.
Yeah. It's the difference between symmetric key and public key cryptography.
Oh, okay.
Public key.
Right. Symmetric cryptography is where you agree on Alice and Bob exchange information out of the radio communication channel, and those codes can be, like for instance, one-time pads are considered unbreakable. There's no known algorithms or approach to breaking a one-time pad. So if you have a symmetric key in which information is exchanged between Alice and Bob, but not in the normal communication channel, maybe they did it face-to-face, those kind of keys, crypto keys, can be unbreakable as far as we know.
Yeah, actually, that's interesting you bring that up, Steve. Back in 1996, when I was here in Austin, we before I did Hushmail, I did a company called Ultimate Privacy that was based specifically on doing, and one of the core aspects of it, I should say, was one-time pad cryptography, and we had $1 million cash bond for anyone who could break our message, which of course nobody can, because it's actually the only mathematically provable system that is unbreakable. And we actually did a financial crypto app based off of it. I filed a patent, which I'm happy to say I abandoned when I left the company. And so it's actually in the public domain. There's a way to use, a one-time pad encryption if you've at least exchanged one set of data in the first place, where you can actually multiple people can then use it, and you can make a financial crypto system on it or anything else. So that's, very few companies have done that, and I realize why, because it's just a matter of, public key systems are just so much more convenient to be able to use, whether you don't have to physically know someone or be in the same room to know that your secret is shared correctly on the symmetric system.
Right. However, the military uses one-time pads extensively.
For
instance, the nuclear launch codes.
They do it for a reason.
Those are all.
It works.
Yeah, exactly, because they know it works. So, but Alice and Bob don't have to exchange one key. For example, with other cypherpunks that I've met and that I know, we'd exchange DVDs that had millions of different one-time pads.
Exactly.
And we could step through them on the disk because they were randomized. So each time you did a communication, you'd step to the next one, and you only had to keep track of which was the last key you used out of the 100 million or something on a DVD.
Well, exactly. We were doing the same thing, but of course in CDs, because the DVDs didn't exist yet. However, dealing with it, the concept that what I created was that if let's say there's Alice, Bob, and Charlie. Well, if Alice has swapped a CD or a DVD with Bob, and Bob swapped a DVD with Charlie, and then you put public key encryption on top of all of that, you've got a system that your average person cannot break. And yet, unless that physical device, the physical data on the DVD is completely captured, you've got an unbreakable system that you now can have a network mesh effect and dealing with.
Yeah.
That's kind of that I've yet to see anyone actually go after that and do that again. And if someone doesn't pick it up in about the next 4 or 5 years, I'm going to go do that again probably. So.
Well, I think what we may see, there's at one of the conferences I presented, one of the people I know came up, he was talking about what's called cryptographic artifacts. Mm-hmm. These are devices that either stream information to you or can interact with you that are just placed anywhere around the world. And you could go to that location, use software and interact with it, and extract a key that you can then use as a one-time pad without ever having to do a face-to-face with it. With Alice and Bob wouldn't meet. They would go to some other third place and they'd get their information. All kinds of interesting things I've seen where, for instance, data that one-time pad data was being streamed from an LED lamp out in the street that was actually a modulated signal that you could pick up with an app with your phone. So it's something what's called Li-Fi. People maybe haven't heard of that. This is a light equivalent, optical equivalent to Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. And so this was streaming information, could be picked up by the camera on your mobile phone, and you'd have all this crypto information that could be used for further communications. And no one who would walk down the street would ever notice that this LED was modulating at hundreds of kilobits per second, streaming out data, because to the human eye, it's invisible, doesn't appear to be blinking.
I've heard that that's actually something that they're looking into using to replace Wi-Fi with. Is this Li-Fi?
Mm-hmm. Li-Fi, exactly. Right, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, there's also ways of passing data between devices that are either they've been cloned or pawned, or they're actually actively taking part in the network where people could walk down the street. And one of the things in spy kind of genre and tradecraft is the brush pass, where people would transfer, a document, would be walking down the street, a guy'd have a newspaper under his arm, and they'd almost bump into each other, and the newspaper would pass between them, and the guy would walk away with the newspaper that the first person had. We've all seen spy movies like that. Well, you can do the same sorts of things with crypto and with software in your mobile phone, where it's set up for a brush pass, where you walk past someone in the street, and only your system would know that your two devices are actually going to transfer information between the two of you as you approach and get very close.
Is that like by using NFC or? near field
NFC
communication.
requires really close. Yeah, you almost have to touch devices together. But things that are like Bluetooth, but not Bluetooth, which is insecure. Things like, let's see, I'm trying Zigbee, which is 802.15.4.
All right.
It's another
Well, we're coming to break,
yeah.
and we'll get into more of this on the other side.
Baby brain gets blamed for forgetfulness and a host of other postpartum mental states. But does having a baby really turn a new mom's brain into mush? I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and I'll be back in a moment with surprising research on the maternal mind.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This message is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
New moms do indeed experience brain changes, but new research shows they don't lose mental power, they actually get smarter. In the weeks following birth, mothers gain a small but significant amount of gray matter in several areas of the brain, including those associated with reasoning and judgment. The more excited a mom is about her newborn, the more the gray matter increases. Gray matter is the brownish-gray neural tissue in the brain. Generally speaking, more gray matter means higher intelligence and ability. Yes, new moms can sometimes be forgetful, but it's not their brain at fault, say researchers. It's more likely due to the demands of motherhood and sleep deprivation. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht for StartPage.com, the world's most private search engine.
About chemtrails.
You're listening to the Logos Radio Network at logosradionetwork.com.
I've been walking a tightrope between fact and fiction. Been wrestling with demons in small bottle prisons. Been talking to sinners who claim to be Christian, but shouting at leaders.
And welcome back to the Crypto Show. I'm talking with Jamie Redman and Steve Shear, noted cypherpunk and all types of cypherpunkery. Anyway,
Copywritten by
copywritten. Yeah. Anyway, so we were talking.
Yeah.
Jamie, you had a question that you wanted to ask Steve. Go ahead with that.
Yeah, so one of the Cypherpunk Manifesto by Eric Hughes and Timothy May's work really inspired me to get into Bitcoin and encryption and all this stuff. And I'm wondering how you feel like today's stance, or how strong the ideology is today. With the mailing list, how strong it is. Do you think there's a lot of people that still support the ideology behind it?
Oh, of course. But the list was always also populated by all kinds of lurkers and intelligence agency or feds. So the list, most of the activities in the cypherpunk movement didn't happen on list. They happened face-to-face at meetings, for instance, in the Bay Area or other places, because it spawned several other cypherpunk clubs, if you want to call it that. I think the cypherpunks, even though Tim May, that cypherpunks, said cypherpunks write code, in fact, not enough cypherpunks were competent at writing the kind of code that we needed. And so years went by before we actually started to see some really good stuff come out of the cypherpunk movement, because people with the real tradecraft, the real skills at coding, those people weren't part of the initial movement, not many of them anyway. You had Mixmaster come out, of course, the male Mixmaster and Mixminion, that Lynn Sassman, who's departed, ran for quite a while. But you didn't have too many other projects actually come out except for PGP. Those were the two notable kind of things that came out of the community, our community. But now, of course, we've got a tremendous amount of crypto stuff that's come out not necessarily from the cypherpunks, but was inspired by or catalyzed by cypherpunks, their philosophy and their direction.
Wow.
So do you think there's a lot of people that still support it?
Absolutely, much more.
So what about, there's like a difference between there's the people who code it and there's the people who are very vocally about it more in the past. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the people who were early in the cypherpunk movement were mostly ideologues and not as much, technology developers. And what happened is when the cypherpunk movement essentially ended. I'm trying to remember the date, but there was, I think it was the 10th anniversary party that was held at Tim May's house in Corralitos. And most of the people in the Bay Area attended, and people flew in for it. After that, the cypherpunk list quieted down considerably. It essentially died for years and didn't have much activities until recently. In parallel, we had Perry Metzger's list, cryptography.com, which was where the serious cryptographers and people could actually do stuff hung out. Now, there was some cross-pollination between them. Some of the people were on both lists. But most of the people that were on the cryptography list, they had major jobs, and they couldn't really talk about crypto-anarchistic stuff that would come back to bite them in their careers. So, you found different people there. That's where Satoshi published his paper on a cryptography list, Perry's paper, list. So I think what's happened is we moved from the cypherpunks and the crypto-anarchists being strictly embraced by people who, wanted to tear stuff down but didn't have any skills to build stuff, to cryptographers holding the same sorts of views more quietly, but actually building the tools and releasing them, people that were digital munitions experts.
Gotcha.
Excellent. Sounds kind of like some parallels with the Bitcoin movement. It started off with largely a lot of ideologues were the ones supporting it, and then some major developers got involved, and then it became a little more mainstream when people really saw how powerful it was. Would you say it's similar to the early cryptography movement?
Yes, and I think there's a fight that's going on in the same way that happened with the cypherpunks, is that it's clear to anyone who looks closely at it is there's politics in that crypto is political. Just the act of creating privacy that is end-user controlled has political implications. And so Bitcoin was supported early on by, the ideologues. And then all money came in, and people who weren't so cypherpunk came in and tried to build businesses out of it. But they really saw the cypherpunk philosophy as sort of a third rail that they dare not touch. Unfortunately, cryptography is political, and Bitcoin has libertarian and cypherpunk roots that won't go away. And so the money people have faced this, this problem. And I think that's one of the reasons that Wall Street and the banks have decided that, as I thought Larry Summers said in his, was it Bitcoin? He had a Bitcoin.com article, didn't he? It was an interview. Wasn't it in there? I think so. Larry Summers.
Yeah, he wanted to get rid of the $500 bill. Yep, I wrote that. It wasn't an interview.
Well, yeah, but he was talking about the blockchain.
I didn't interview
and his attitude. Oh, I'm sorry. Larry's attitude was sort of like, thanks, boys, for the great technology, but we'll take it from here. In other words, as far as the blockchain is concerned. So the blockchain is non-threatening because it's permissionable, the way the banks use it. Bitcoin is very threatening to the banks because it looks to disintermediate them.
Yeah, it's definitely a threat. And there's tension that you can tell within the movement itself. And there's some people that started off as anarchists, and then they got a little bit of taste of money, and they kind of lost their early credentials. But it's interesting to see that tension. I think that tension ultimately could play out for a win-win. I envision white Bitcoins and black Bitcoins, which people have written about in the past. And basically the black Bitcoins are the ones that are unregistered. They're not tied to a user identity. White Bitcoins are ones that have gone through some sort of anti-money laundering, know your customer type of check. And I imagine the government's preference in the future will be that you can only transact with white Bitcoins. But the beauty of the blockchain is as long as people are willing to take on that risk and put a little skin in the game, and as long as people are educated enough to do so properly utilizing Bitcoin, then at the end of the day, there's nothing really the government can do so long as people take that leap of faith and continue to act on principle. What are your thoughts on that dichotomy between white Bitcoins and black Bitcoins? And do you think that the government has the power to do away with anonymous Bitcoin, or at least pseudonymous Bitcoin altogether? How do you think that'll play out, Steve?
Well, it reminds me of the situation with cocaine on $20 bills. Are you not going to touch money because there's cocaine residue on it? Well, it turned out that when they looked into the wallet of President Reagan, many of the bills had cocaine residue on it. So are you not going to touch these?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's like a gun, It can be used for terrible, terrible things. It can be used for coercion and violence and thievery, or it can be used to defend your family from the attack of a killer or a psychopath. Same thing with Bitcoin. It can be used for, people hack onto computers and then they expect payment in Bitcoin, and there's child pornography that's trafficked and people use Bitcoin to purchase it. But I think that's the large minority of it all. And at the end of the day, most people in this world are good actors, and most people that are using Bitcoin are doing so because of the utility that it has for a business or monetary transaction. And then, of course, there's the rest of us that are using it because it's what my wife and I call ethical money when compared to the U.S. dollar.
Right, exactly. Of course, most people don't care about these things. They care about whether the money is usable, and the only taint that they would think of is if it was actually used in criminal activity. I actually saw something about that along those lines, and the idea that tainted Bitcoin and tainted money it's as ridiculous as saying that if atoms that had been in the body, formerly in the body of a serial murderer, found themselves eventually, because of recycling in the environment, in a beautiful flower, would you not want to touch that flower or look at it or see it as beautiful just because the source of those atoms?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's really no. I mean, I guess with Bitcoin, you could trace it and see if it did go through some sort of nefarious transaction.
Oh, no, Silk Road coins.
Yeah, Silk Road coins, don't use them. It's unethical. When in reality, Silk Road was probably some of the most ethical use of Bitcoin yet because it really dramatically reduced crime and all of the gang activity associated with Bitcoin. And now the only gang that was involved in Silk Road is the DEA, DHS, FBI, and all those guys. Well, we're coming up on a break. We got one more segment left here on the Crypto Show, so stick around. We are talking cypherpunkery here on Logos Radio Network. We'll be right back.
Easy.
And welcome back to the Crypto Show. We got John Bush back in studio with us here.
Hey.
And we're talking with Jamie Redmond and Steve Shear. And we were going to get into a little bit of something different. Go ahead, Jamie. You had something that you wanted to ask.
Yeah, we were talking about the political aspect of how Bitcoin is and the cypherpunks. And, I was wondering what you thought about the Craig Wright situation and if you thought maybe that he was like a PSYOP or a CIA kind of setup to shift things. It's been said.
Definitely, yeah.
Or do you think he was legitimate maybe, or do you think it was just this big press kind of fiasco?
I think that there was a plan, and I'm not sure that his leaving and without providing his proof wasn't that thought of from the beginning. One of the things I found interesting is that he actually retained the same PR agency that David Bowie used. And these are very high-paid people. And I wondered whether or not there was an entire plan for him to come forward, but only say certain things or do certain things. First of all, there was no real reason, technically, for Wright to come forward and identify himself as being behind Bitcoin, none that I could see, because all he had to do was anonymously sign a document with the key, put it out there, and everyone would know Satoshi was still around. You didn't have to show it at MeetSpace ID. So he had a reason behind this.
I mean, this is the same guy that they raided his house in Australia several months back, 6 months ago or however long ago. How long ago was that, Jamie? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think it was like 3 or 4 months maybe before he came out again.
Right. So
and we all heard about it beforehand. And a few people, John
It was a tax raid. It was really a tax raid.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because Satoshi, whoever is Satoshi, whoever is or are Satoshi, are going to control about 1 million Bitcoins. We're talking about $450 million US at this time. So that's a lot of money. And of course, in some countries, like in Australia, if you possess it and you mine it, you actually owe taxes on it, even if you don't spend it.
Mm-hmm. So, and there was a double. I guess Australia had a double tax as well, too, right? But they've just recently lifted that. So,
right. So, but you have to ask yourself if the whoever Satoshi is or are did not have to come forward with a MeetSpace ID, why was that done? Okay, there was a reason behind it. Was it ego? Did he really think he was going to play a major role in the Bitcoin community and he lost his nerve? I think we can look at what he actually did release, which was sort of interesting, and that is the paper he did release revealed that the algorithm that is used for hashing was not Adam Back's algorithm. That's significant because Adam Back had good reason to believe and had sort of maintained openly that he was one of the fathers, of course, of Bitcoin. And the reason for that is that Satoshi's original white paper cited Adam Back's hashing algorithm. But when the code was examined after Wright revealed himself, he said that it wasn't Adam's code, but it was actually by, I think, Wei Dai and some other technologists. Now, what's interesting is Wei Dai is one of the other people who is has been cited as being Satoshi. Perhaps Wright and Wei Dai were in the same team, and that's why that paper was used, that different algorithm. So that's one aspect I don't think that people have talked about. The other thing is that Adam and his group, including Austin Hill, they benefit by being able to caused caused Bitcoin a bit of stress and being able to supplant Bitcoin in the community. And so it might have been that Craig Wright's paper coming out and him exposing himself was to do damage to Blockstream, Adam Beck, and Austin Hill's venture in order to kind of like mute their ability to influence the market. I'm not sure, but I thought about that.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it seemed pretty shady and pretty poor PR to say that you're going to do something and then all of a sudden not do it. It was a pretty big fail.
That and also they came out on CNN or whatever. Why wouldn't they have called Jamie Redmond instead? You know, Bitcoin.com. Why wouldn't you put it out somewhere where it actually mattered instead of some guy comes on CNN and says, "No, what's this Bitcoin stuff again? Can you explain to me what it does?"
I hope we never find out who it is. And there's always a mystery. I think it adds to the kind of prestige and the edgy factor for Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah, and even if they do find out, they've had so many fakes so far. Would you even believe it if it was real? If it was the real thing?
I'm Satoshi Nakamoto.
I'm pretty sure it would. Yeah, John made it in his basement.
That's right. I am Spartacus. It very well could be NSA or some type of government agency, and we run Brave New Books, and our roots are conspiratorial view of history. So it would make sense. There's an effort to create a cashless society because, of course, cash in U.S. dollars it's really easy to do anonymous transactions, especially when you're in person. And Bitcoin enables that same thing globally. But if the governments utilize this technology, if enough people start utilizing it, the banks start using it, and then the governments come in and crack in and do this nonsense where you can only transact with Bitcoin with a registered account, and then you have your social security number tied to a Bitcoin address for your whole damn life. It would make sense that this, in fact, could be the mechanism to usher in a global currency that's all above the board and where you literally can't have any privacy at all. And if they required Bitcoin for tax payments, of course, then it would force a lot of people to use it. And if all these legacy financial institutions and banks required Bitcoin and have white registered addresses, it seems like it could be a path towards that. What do y'all think? I know we've mentioned it already a little bit, but you think there's any credence to that possibility, or you think it's just opened such a Pandora's box that wouldn't even be a good play by the powers that be?
I think that you've got too many people already working on stopping that actually know what they're doing versus the government that doesn't know what the hell they're doing. Up. People like Justice Ranvier. The other day we had him on, and he was talking about using the deal in Samurai where you have one public key, but it sends out a different address each time. Stuff like that. BIP 47.
I think that they're just like kind of catching on to it and trying to track it as well as they can, and they're learning about it. I'm not too keen on the conspiracy, one ring to rule them all type of thing.
I agree.
Yeah. And the reason I agree, they're learning about it. They're trying to.
The intelligence agencies, they need places to launder their money. One has only to look at the Australian bank Million Hand and then the BICC, which was funded in the Emirates, to see that both of those banks were actually created by intelligence agencies so they could do black ops. So these intelligence agencies and non-governmental organizations need a way of laundering their money, doing payoffs, and all the kinds of things that governments do behind the back. If all currencies were very well tracked so that they couldn't do these operations, then we get caught. This would not be in their benefit.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just wanted to announce that I just received another 2 Dash orders on our BraveNewBookstore.com. One of them was already fulfilled, so check out BraveNewBookstore.com. You can pay with Bitcoin and you can pay with Dash cryptocurrency now. Pretty exciting. I'm excited, at least.
Well, you need to go ahead and get that. You need to get a Shapeshift wallet as well, then, so that you can just accept everything.
That's right. That's how we do it. Shapeshift is phenomenal.
Yeah. As soon as I don't know what's the state. Do you know what the state is of Shapeshift right now, Jamie?
I know that they're back in action and stuff. I don't think there's anything crazy news about what's going on over there, except for what happened.
Yeah.
It's just I think they're just back in business.
Cool. Yeah, for those listeners that aren't aware, Shapeshift was hacked probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they took hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? It wasn't millions of dollars. It was like 250,000 or something.
I think they got the hot wallet that belonged to Shapeshift, but they didn't get any customer funds.
It was an inside job by someone. They called him Bob in the story. You can read the transcript from Eric on our website, Bitcoin.com, and he tells the whole story.
Excellent. Hey, Steve, we're coming up on the end of the show. I just wanted to see if you have any parting words for any young crypto anarchists or cypherpunks out there. Just some words of wisdom.
Well, I think that just taking the time to read what's happened before and not just jump in to the greatest and newest thing will serve you very well. When people look at what's going on, for instance, in the Bitcoin community and the stuff that's going on in Stash and all these other cryptocurrencies, they're wise to look at the Liberty Reserve, the Liberty Dollar, and especially what happened with eGold quite a few years ago, and see what lessons were learned, if any, in the community.
Excellent. All right, we got like a minute left or so. Jamie, why don't you tell the listeners where they can check out some of your articles?
You can find me at newsbtc.com. You can find me at the Bitcoinist, bitcoin.com. I'm at CoinGecko and a couple other places that I can't think of offhand.
The art of not being governed.
Yes, you can find me over there as well. You can find all of our stories over there and about cryptocurrency and ending the state, anything to do with crypto anarchy, cypherpunks. We're into it all. Liberty movement. That's our thing.
Alrighty. And it looks like we've got, 20 seconds left or so. And coming to the end of the crypto show here, we've been talking with Jamie Redman and Steve Shear, who is the cypherpunk extraordinaire. And I guess we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Freedom.
Peace and freedom.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks, Steve. LogosRadioNetwork.com.
You're welcome.